Hello and welcome to Coffee and Catholics, a Catholic women's talk show podcast. I'm Stacy, one of your hosts, and with me I have...
Hi, I'm Alicia.
I'm Annie.
And I'm Lauren.
Hello, welcome to Coffee and Catholics. If you had joined us 2 weeks ago, you would have heard our interview with our own co-host, Alicia. We are doing a little 4-episode series where we interview each other and to kind of reintroduce ourselves to you all. We had done an introduction on our Facebook group page before our first episode was released, but we've never done a formal introduction here on the podcast. So we thought we would go ahead and do that to start off 2022. And today we are going to be interviewing our co-host, Annie.
Hello.
Hello, Annie. So, Annie, where are you from originally?
I am from the Oklahoma City area. Kind of bounced, I was from east of Oklahoma City growing up. And then got married. We lived in western Oklahoma for a little bit. Well, we lived in Oklahoma City area. Then western Oklahoma. Then we lived in Colorado, north of Denver for a bit, for about 3 years. And then we moved back to Oklahoma to take care of my dad when he was sick, and just stayed. And we love being here because all of our families here.
So Annie, I know in our personal conversations before you've talked a little bit about your education growing up. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I started off in a Catholic school for preschool and kindergarten. I was the kid who you heard screaming down the halls and kicked the nun and wouldn't take naps, and it was good times. And then
Was this like the kicking of the nun? Did this happen repeatedly, or is just like a one-time incident?
the kicking of the nun happened, I believe, one time. I didn't want to take a nap. This was in preschool, and I've heard this story several times from the teacher who's now her daughter married my uncle, so it was my aunt's mom. Mm-hmm. But she I guess I wanted to take a nap. I didn't want to take a nap. And so she gave me the warning that she was going to send me to the principal's office, who is this sister who was not a petite, very, proper little nun. She was a rather sturdy lady who everybody feared. And she thought that would kind of get me to settle down and everything. It did not. And so she had to make good on that and send me to the principal's office. And I don't remember exactly, but my go-to was sticking my fingers in my ears, sticking my tongue out, and just kicking. And she at some point chased me around her office. So that fun times. And my mom was a teacher there. So yeah, that was. I got to sit out of my mom's room a few times for repeatedly tapping my pencil. I am undiagnosed ADHD. Come to find out. So then I was there for preschool, kindergarten, and then we went, I went to public school, kind of followed, my mom was a teacher, I followed her around to different places, so it was one school for first grade, then switched to another school for second grade, and this was in the same district. So then went to a different school for 3rd and 4th grade in public school. Then my mom left teaching for a bit when she had my younger sister. And so then I went to another public school for 5th and 6th grade so I could take the bus. Then went back to the Catholic school for 7th and 8th grade, where the kids in the class remembered me as the girl that they had to tickle to wake up, because come kindergarten, I had decided I liked naps. And then they couldn't wake me up unless they tickled me.
So the same group of kids, you went back to the same school? Yeah. So that's hilarious. They remembered you from kindergarten. They were like in 8th grade?
Yeah.
That's so fun.
And then from there, in high school, I went to rather than one of the local Catholic high schools, I went to one that was closer. It was a quote-unquote non-denominational Christian school, but in reality it was pretty much Baptist, which, I love my Baptist brothers and sisters, but I was like the token Catholic of the school. I think there's one other, and like one of my best friends was in the grade above me, and we went to the same parish, and that's kind of how I got to know this school too, was through her. And then by the time I was a senior, there was a freshman. But yeah, we were the only Catholics in the school, and it's an interesting experience. I wish that I was better at apologetics then. Like, I wish I knew, and my parents were the youth leaders at my parish, and so they really kind of worked on apologetics with us. That was kind of the big thing we did in youth group. And so I did a little, I was able to a little, I just wasn't very confident at it. But I kind of wish I could go back and kind of redo some of those classes there and talk to some of those teachers a little more.
Do you think the fact that your parents were youth leaders helped keep you grounded in your faith when you were being, would you say that was something that helped when you were going to school with kids in a slightly different faith tradition?
Definitely. There wasn't an option. I went to youth group, and we discussed a lot of those,
the stuff you were going
through. Yeah, and it was more of my friends and the people that I really connected with were in the youth group. We're in my parish, and they were at high school in school, and so that was kind of most of the things that I did outside of school were with the church. My parents were also really involved with a ministry called Hot Dogs for the Homeless. It's a ministry here in Oklahoma City where they bring hot dog lunches to the homeless. Pretty self-explanatory. But my parents actually had added to that, and they took clothing donations, and they took a van out with the group that was we doing the hot dogs, and we would just get out all of these clothes that they had organized. We had organized into different categories and stuff, and had people would just kind of pick through it. So that was another ministry that I helped with growing up, and that kind of formed my understanding of what it means to be Catholic.
One thing I've been always wanting to ask you is you were really involved in this church camp growing up. And I've always wanted to ask you about if that too was something that was one of those touch points of your faith, because you talk about it, and even to this day you get so excited about it when you talk about it. And I've just always wondered, what was it about that? If you could tell us more about that experience.
Oh, camp. How I love thee. I never went to camp growing up. I was never a camper at any of the sleepover camps or whatever they're called. We did day camps with Girl Scouts and stuff when I was in Girl Scouts for a minute. But I started at this youth camp that's here in the Oklahoma City area. When I was 16, and it was the summer I turned 16. That was the age you could be to start working there. Because I'd heard about there were other people in the youth group, and I just fell in love with the place, and I was a counselor for I don't even know how many years. Met my husband there, and I just really found a home in this community with other like-minded, I guess. We were all kind of in different places of faith and our faith journey and stuff, but other Catholics who came together for a common mission to help kids have an awesome summer. And with being in a high school where I was the token Catholic, to being in going in the summer where it was just surrounded don't know, I kind of lived for the summers on that too. And I was also like, I did a lot of volunteer work in high school. I volunteered at the local science museum, at the library, with the hot dogs for the homeless stuff. And then I went to church camp, and then I also went to nerd camp, which was like science and math camp. And like, so all my friends were like this summer. Like, I had some close friends at school, and that that I did things with at school, but I didn't really do a lot of extracurriculars with them. Like, I wasn't really, I was one of the only, basically the only Catholics in the high school. But one of my friends from high school, like one of my, like my closest friend from my grade, there were only like 43 of us in the class. But she's since converted to Catholicism, and I'm her son's godmother.
So in church or school or camp, did you play any instruments or sing in the choir anywhere?
Did not play any instruments. I did sing in choir.
Can we hear you sing now?
No. You didn't have to audition for choir. I was in it for the choir tour. Every year, choir got to go on a trip to different places. I was just talking to a friend the other day, trying to remember where all we went. But I'm pretty sure we went to New Orleans, and various places in Louisiana, Colorado. I think it was Colorado Springs area. I think Missouri and Tennessee. I think those were places. But yeah, we got to go. We went on like a week-long trip at the end of the year.
Did you play any sports growing up?
I played basketball starting in like 4th grade through 9th grade, when I went into high school and realized I was not good. I mean, I knew I wasn't good, but I was really not good. Actually, I really did know this, that we weren't good. In 7th and 8th grade at the little Catholic school, we went 2 years straight of never winning a game. But one game, we only lost 63-3 because I made a 3-pointer.
You being the only one to get them on the scoreboard. There you go.
They were awful. But we had a lot of fun. I think I broke my dad's finger at practice one time. We didn't have enough people to like play against each other, or like to scrimmage. There's the word. Scrimmage against each other. So like the dads and younger siblings would join in. Broke my dad's finger, or maybe it was one of the coach's younger daughter's finger. I'm not sure. And then I think a pair of glasses.
Wow. That's impressive.
Take those victories where you can.
Yeah. And then I also played volleyball. And that one I did play in high school, but I also was not good. I just enjoyed the not running as much, like you will show with your tennis. But yeah, so I was on the JV team and did not even start my senior year on JV. I played like back row, center, and right, and that was it. Yeah, so they didn't even like me to I couldn't serve very well. Although sometimes I would still serve underhanded, and they could not figure out how to return that sometimes, because they're
So they
like,
you do that.
yeah. Yeah, but I enjoyed it though. That's what really matters.
You mentioned going to Catholic preschool, and so were you a cradle Catholic?
Yes, cradle Catholic.
Were both of your parents raised Catholic, or?
They were. They were both cradle Catholics as well. My grandma on my dad's side, she was a convert with her marriage from the Lutheran Church.
It's neat that you come from like a long history of Catholics. I think that's neat when keep it in the family.
Yeah, you can go back on my dad's side. His dad's parents, I believe, came here from Poland. And so there's Polish Catholic.
That Polish Catholicism is so deep, man.
Yeah. And then on
deep,
my
DNA deep.
And then on my mom's side, we got the French Canadian.
Oh, just got it.
And there, so we got the Catholic all around.
So how
there.
many like generations does it go back for
I
crystals to
have
do
no
that?
idea. No idea.
What's your favorite thing about being Catholic?
There's a lot. But I think one of the biggest things for me is the universalism of it. Like, when we go on vacation, we go different places or whatever, and it's like we've moved, and we go to Mass, and it's the same.
Mm-hmm.
And it's Jesus. And I mean, my husband worked overseas for a bit, and he would go to Mass there, and it was like we could be together because he.
Aww.
That's
That is so sweet.
And it's true. It really is true.
When we were okay. For the very beginning of our relationship, my husband was still in seminary.
Let's talk about that.
Yes, please.
What about? Okay, so we my husband and I met at church camp, and we've been friends for like 4 years. And then we started chatting some more through AOL Instant Messenger.
Oh, I have so many high school relationships on that.
You got mail. Sorry.
This was in college.
Sorry.
So
It's just advanced.
but just kind of he's kind of revealing to me that he had been in his first years. No, he was in his second year of seminary at that point. Sorry, second year of seminary, and he's talking about how he was, considering or had kind of discerned that he was saying he'd leave. That wasn't his calling. There's the words, and then we were just kind of talking about like what he would do, and like I had also gotten out of a sticky relationship, and had made a commitment with a friend to not date for a year.
It's always going to happen.
Yeah. And yeah, so we just and we were just talking about like what we kind of were looking for the future, and it was like really meshing, and so we just kind of were just talking a lot, and then he came home for Christmas break, and we kind of told each other we liked each other and started dating. But then he went back to seminary because he was dumb and did like in our head is like a year, like not I can leave at the semester. Like, he shouldn't have gone back. So we were and then he left mid-semester. So it was, because he was in seminary, like, and he wasn't into me, but he was thinking, like, the college aspect of it, and, yeah. But, yeah, so that's where that was from.
You guys have such a sweet relationship, too. Like, it's so sweet. The way you guys are just, like, best buddies. Like, you really are.
Sure, like, he was one of my really good friends. We had a really good foundation with that. And like at camp, we were really good friends with a couple who are married now too, but they were like a couple in there, and like anytime we had like things, like there were different things, like we always ended up the four of us kind of like doing stuff together. But yeah, so we got to know each other just like on a platonic level, because he was my friend who was going to be a priest.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like I never thought about him as anything other than my friend who was going to be a priest until he told me he was not going to be a priest.
You were like, so you mentioned all these things that you were not great at growing up or mediocre at. What is something that you are good at?
Being awkward. Speaking of being awkward. Well, I have my degree in math. But I really, that was something like when I went to college, so I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I like math. I guess I'll be an engineer. So I went into engineering because that's, you like math. I guess that's what you're going to do if you want to actually, make some money with your degree. And then my college roommate, who was amazing, who was just like this, potluck, didn't know her at all before person. Like, we should have been like the best roommate ever. We were roommates all 4 years. She was a math major and was all excited about being a calculus teacher someday and just like on fire about it. And I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. So then I got my degree in math and I really loved it. And I barely taught, but I really enjoyed math. And my college roommate is a calculus teacher and she's really awesome at it.
She's still teaching? Yeah,
I was her maternity sub for a while. Yeah. But now I stay home with my babies and sometimes really don't understand how to teach elementary math.
That was not your area of specialization.
No, I am I can do algebra and up. I've taught really 6th grade math all the way through calculus, AP calculus. So. Yeah.
So when all of our kids are homeschool age, they need a homeschool math teacher.
Just have to hit that high school. We have to have those high school credits. Yes. So, Miss Annie, we're knocking on your door.
I would be glad to help because
Well, that's good.
I heard. Yeah, I know. I get kind of excited with my one of my cousins just sometimes come to. She would send me math questions for her college classes, and it was like, oh, I get to work my brain. I'm so excited. So I was able to help, and then also able to think about something other than dirty diapers.
Well, you talked about all these ministries that you volunteered, or not even just ministries, but just like at the library and the Science Museum, but all these volunteer things that you did growing up. Have there been any roles that you played at church or otherwise since becoming an adult or a mother?
Yeah. Well, when my husband and I first got married, we helped out with youth ministry, and we had I've talked about this before, we had about 5 years of infertility, so we were able to do a little bit more hands-on things than without our kids hanging out. But we did youth ministry and was involved in different wemen's groups and things, and then since having kids I've done a little bit less, but also a little bit different. We're involved in a homeschool co-op, or not really co-op, just a homeschool group that meets up that's with our church that also has children's adoration. And then I lead a discipleship group for women, and I've done some volunteer work, and my husband was working for this nonprofit, but now we just do volunteer for Gospel of Life Disciples and Dwellings. It's a nonprofit home for the poor and dying, led by the magnificent Sister Maria. Look it up. Gold. Gospel of Life Disciples. It's amazing. We'll link it.
And they also have houses, not just here in Oklahoma.
They have.
Either.
Yeah, they have in Texas. They're opening up a brand new one. They just opened up one brand new. And yeah, they're just the work that they do just to help people who are in their end days is just beautiful. And it really means a lot to me in my life, because I took care of my dad and my grandma when they died, and with them, my dad being an only child and my grandma not having any family left other than really me and my sisters, to know that there are people and there are ministries that are committed to being there for those who don't have anybody. It's just amazing work that they do. And I know that there are so many people that are in regular nursing home settings that don't have the family that Gold provides. So that's a really dear ministry to me. And then I'm also involved in domestic church, which I know domestic church means you're your home, your church at home, but also there's a, what do you call it, a movement?
Yeah, it's a movement that came out of Poland.
Yeah.
And it's part of the Light Life movement. That was John Paul II was very involved in that. And it's basically a family accountability program.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so we're involved with that. Something that has really been kind of on my heart lately with the whole, like, I'm not doing, like, I feel like I'm not doing as much as, like, I used to, or things, is that I'm just called to a different ministry in my life. My husband is being called right now to be leading a lot of men's group things. We have 4 boys, and he is the one who is doing the Troops of St. George with them. He is the one who is leading the fraternist group, which is a men's, it's for 5th grade, I think, and up. Men's group or young men's group. That's what our church is doing for youth ministry. And so he's in youth ministry that way. He's leading his own discipleship group. He leads or organizes like an Exodus 90 group. He's doing all these different things to kind of bring up good, strong men. And I'm feeling like I've really had to recognize that that's what God's calling me to do right now, is to support him in doing that, to give our sons more opportunities, to give them the opportunity or the experiences, a way to really dive into their faith and be set apart from our current culture that I can't provide. I stay home and homeschool them. They're with me like so much. And even like the times where he's doing these different ministry things where the kids aren't involved with, I'm home with them. But I have to recognize that I'm like really been feeling this a lot lately, and God's been like talking to me a lot about this lately, that is the important thing for our the important work of our family right now is to, and especially, we talked about how he was in seminary. Because he was called to seminary. He wasn't called to be a priest, but he was called to seminary. He followed that call. And how many of our boys and men don't follow that call, whatever it may be, and don't follow whatever they're called, and they aren't, because they're not being encouraged.
Well, I think a lot of times people think that seminary means you have to become a priest.
Right.
So it's really a good discernment period,
right,
where you're learning more about our faith and whether or not that's really where God's calling you to go.
And the things that maybe he experienced and learned there, what God did in him, created the preparation for what he's doing now, which is going to impact our culture.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that you spoke about the stepping back to allow your husband to use those gifts right now to form that foundation for when your sons are older, they have those things available to them. And I just had a friend recently talk about how she stepped back for a while, thought that, she put everything on hold for her family, and then ended up with this, she just waited and all this stuff showed up. And I hear you saying the same thing. And so you're like, my time's going to come. I'm trying to be patient. I just love how beautiful that is.
And that's something with our domestic church. One of the things that we do, that we've been taught how to do, is something called couple dialogue. And it's not just a conversation with your spouse, it's conversation and prayer. You're talking about all these important things in your life. You have your family meeting or your couple meeting, you're talking to them, but you're praying about each specific thing that you're needing to discuss. And that has kind of helped me in that, because we'll talk about his job or his ministries or my area, what we're doing, and we pray about it, and we pray about each of our kids, and recognizing that these, it's helped me really recognize that the things that my husband's doing, what it's leading our family towards.
Well, I would say too that, like, you know, you putting kind of recognizing what your role is right now, like that is your time. You know, like they're and like God's gonna make because you're answering that call that you feel like God is calling you to. That, you know, beautiful things are gonna happen to you and through you because of that.
And already
for your family,
in your sons.
Oh yeah,
and in your sons' souls and in their lives, things that are eternal. Because of that yes is always so much bigger than just the yes that we say. You know, it moves mountains.
It opens up so many opportunities.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I mean, and there's this.
That look.
This little thing we do.
And so, do you have any favorite books or devotions or saints?
Like, those don't really go together because I'm thinking my favorite book is The Giver.
Fair enough.
It didn't say it had to be a Catholic.
It doesn't have to be. Or what are you reading right now? Or what are you feeling drawn to learn more about in your faith? And things like that.
I like how you put that there. What have you been drawn to be learning more in your faith? Because that's something I've read a variety of like different books that have all led me to want to learn more about Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, this time. And I've tried a little bit of stuff on my phone, but I need to get like better book or something. But I've been feeling like kind of led to her lately, and then I really like praying the Chaplet of Divine Mercy, and just that. I think it's because like I have those like ADHD kind of tendencies. I'm kind of recognizing that a lot in myself because of my oldest son has recently had a like ADHD diagnosis, and I'm learning more about it and everything. So I'm like kind of learning on that. And I get really distracted during the rosary. It's just a little. And so, but I'm like, the Divine Mercy Chaplet is very doable for me. But then also like the words itself, like, and the prayers itself involved, it's just very moving. And that's been kind of my go-to like devotion, as you could call it. Yeah.
If you could visit your younger self, what is something that you would, like a piece of advice that you would tell yourself?
I don't know, because any advice that I would give to myself would change the course of where I am today, and I wouldn't change that.
It was very wise.
Yeah.
She is wise.
Annie, you've traveled outside the United States.
Mm-hmm.
If there is anywhere you could go that you haven't already been, where would it be?
Yeah, that's a hard one, because I've never been to any of the places outside the United States with my husband. And I would love to go to Assisi with him. I mean, you know, we'd also go to Rome and all, Vatican City and all that, but Assisi is absolutely gorgeous. But I've already been there, so I guess I can't answer that. I would love, I'd probably be horribly sick the whole time, but I would love to go on an Alaskan cruise. It would be really fun. I am, like, I get horribly motion sick. Like, I can't sit in one of those glider chairs with the feet in the ottoman without getting motion sick. I'm constantly telling my kids to stop rocking the rocking chair because I will get sick. But I want to go on an Alaskan cruise. I'm like totally, yeah. I'll just sleep the whole time. That's what, when I went to France, like everything's like a far distance between things in France, and well, at least where we were going. And we would take the bus there, and I always took my Dramamine. And like one time I was awake, and they were like, "Annie's awake." This was in college, like with a pilgrimage group. Yeah. I get like really bad motion sick.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed learning more about Annie And join us in 2 weeks when we learn more about Lauren.
And as always, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Join us again in 2 weeks.
Until then, may God bless you and may Mary accompany you.